The Lefi have been experimenting on humans for decades now. This would be difficult and hard to cover up if not for the many heads of their own governments working along with the Lefi. Not long after, the Lefi would begin to barter the information gained and the specimens they capture with other species. This particular species that they capture and experience on is rather unimpressive. Yet there's something in them, something that gnawed at the psyche of every scientist that worked with them. No one figured it out. At least, no one did until another human scientist with his own insights helped them figure it out. On this day, the information was no longer up for barter. This was odd for many species, and many of the species began to pursue the Lefi for the information. When they failed, they decided they would go straight to the source. This would be straight to their planet and to their real government, and of course dealing with the numerous token governments that were hesitant to work with other token governments. This made it very easy for some species to simply say that they were going to share some sort of technology and they could use that to barter for information. Yet there were some difficulties. Eventually they used a simple trap baited with the honey that the humans call to get the information they needed. When they received this information, it shocked all, but none were more shocked than the species known as the Reichim. It is noted that each species of the galaxy are always trying to get an advantage over others, very similar as the token governments try to get an advantage over each other. The discovery of this new weapon, as they found out, is just as significant as realizing you can refine ore in the Stone Age. This is even metaphorically true, as the local population was the absolute key to unlocking it. This species that is the key called themselves many names, but mostly human. All the other species looked at this population on this one simple blue ball floating through the ether as a refinable resources, and whichever species refined enough of it first would truly have the advantage. However, the concept of sharing this across other species was already foreign to most of them. This means they want it all, and they will kill to get it. It was near the center of this planet's yearly cold cycle that both of these foreign species fought it out across the planet. The locals at first believed this to be some sort of joke, some illusion, but eventually they panicked as they had not been fully informed by the real government or even the token ones about what was exactly taking place in their atmosphere. Both alien species fought over the same resource, a resource they did not want to destroy, as the resource itself fought back. At least, it tried. The primitive technology of Earth at the time that the population themselves used to try and cull its own population with was extremely slow in comparison to the two different species in the sky, at least until the humans brought out what they call the good stuff. These were directed energy weapons of all different powers and frequencies, and they were used to force the alien crafts out of the sky. The introduction of these weapons would cause any of the alien craft to simply shut down and overload at the same time, locking in all their safety features, and with the loss of all the systems functioning, unless the engines can be restored in a very short amount of time, the craft will simply crash into the ground, ripping itself to pieces as it does. Without gravimetrics, the craft would just simply scatter into small little pieces and spray everywhere along with those who were inside. A grazing shot from one of these directed energy weapons would make the craft very slow enough that even the terrestrial weapons at the time could strike, and when they do, they strike hard with enough kinetic force to blow the craft open, forcing them down, usually by killing the crew inside. By the end of the battle, both of the alien groups withdraw, realizing that they no longer have the ability to fight on with the limited supply and personnel they have. But when they left behind a lot of technology. During the investigation of not only the militaries, not only the governments, but also the civilians that found all sorts of technology scattered across the planet, the surviving Reichim claimed that they wanted to fix humans. However, they could only fully fix certain ones. The real government of the planet tried to force this fix on humans that they wanted, ones that were not compatible. The results of this were less than encouraging, to say the least. Quickly, it was discovered through interviews of captured Reichim, and especially through social media, that certain genetic markers had to be found, and this was easier than anyone thought it could be, as all they would have to do is simply open their hands and look. They told the male and female populations that they had to look on separate hands. If you were a male, you looked on your right hand and looked at the creases, and if it showed an M pattern, then you were compatible. For women, it was on the left hand. If you saw this on either hand, you were 51% compatible with a full fix. If they had the markers on both hands, then it jumped to 99% compatible. And what they could find of this was something amazing. However, before anybody could get a full fix, they had to be what everyone called prefixed. And this was done to every single human on the planet, and no one fought it. It seemed to be a strange mix of genetic manipulation. The humans call it CRISPR. Along with this, there was the introduction of a few herbs and chemicals like charcoal to drain the body of toxins and parasites, and finally, a full frequency spread to destroy any and all viruses throughout the body. This brought humans to the peak of physicality, and all they had to do, if they only got the prefix, was to go in for an upgrade every 6 months to a year, almost like they're changing the oil on a car. This alone was enough to get everyone excited about this new technology, but what they did not know is thanks to human physiology, there was additional side benefits. Side benefits, like all cellular mutations, are simply consumed back into the body before they even become malignant. Genetic diseases are completely erased, and many even had their lost limbs begin to regenerate slowly over time. The only possible downside that anyone saw is that the main social implications was that the sudden rush of the general population, now that everybody basically was at their peak of fitness, was the sudden rush to hedonism. Once this process was complete, though, those that could be fully fixed go through an additional procedure, and this has more to do with the mind and not the body. However, if they adjusted the mind and the body was not ready, it would not survive. It was at this point the Reichim believed that the humans would self-destruct after being fixed. This is due to it being so common on different species. Every time they find a species they can do this with, it is usually only a 5-6% that actually survive, which is why this is done so rarely, yet the results are so required. However, to the Reichim's shock, the humans seemed to simply sit up after the procedure and look forward in what all humans call a 1,000-yard stare. And they sit there from anywhere from a few minutes to a few hours, completely unresponsive. Then they would simply come back to reality, get up and leave, usually thanking for the adjustment. Some would wait afterwards and watch others, seemingly getting ready to welcome them into whatever was happening. After the Reihim performed this procedure on several hundred, leaning into over 1,000 humans, they actually began to ask the humans to join the Reihim. And this is when most of the humans, in perfect unison, when asked this question, simply said no. The Reihim pleaded as their forces were extremely depleted and they needed humans to fight with them. They needed to protect their own. The new Psionic humans, as they are now known, would laugh and ask, "Don't you mean for you?" The Reihim were horrified at this revelation as they realized that the psionic humans had the ability far beyond others that they had fixed before. However, this was speculation until it was actually proven, as a Reihim ship landed soon after to retrieve the engineers and doctors and anyone else left behind. The humans had used their new abilities to somehow reach out across the stars and talk to the leadership instantaneously. The Reihim had heard about something like this, but they had never seen it before. The Reihim realized that they were actually in very deep, as they would not be able to bring any type of subterfuge. They would not be able to get away with a single lie with these new humans, as they could instantly tell when one was telling them falsehoods. However, before the Reihim left, the humans gave them a final message. One stepped forward and said, "You have fixed us, and we are beyond grateful for that. In payment, we've already sent a message to your would-be adversaries that we are protecting your territory for the next 1,000 human years. You can build upon your forces in that time. However, we will not offensively fight for you or beside you. We will simply protect your territory. Besides, my killing days are over. But if you want to try to attack this sector, well, I can tell you that my friends and I will show you no mercy, nor will we show any others mercy." After that, the Reihim took off, and since then, only one species had dared to even test this threat from the humans. The Zhektatok decide that they wanted human weapons for themselves, not realizing that the humans are the weapons that they speak of. Each and every vessel that was sent down to Earth to collect these weapons lost control due to a psionic burst into their systems, which made them completely shut down. And as they suddenly plummeted, it seemed as though something softly caught them, grabbed them in the air. Some sort of telekinesis was able to lower them softly to the surface. And thanks to this, humans now have ships. Ships that are capable of traveling the stars. As for Xenatok, they quickly realized that the humans are dangerous. Very dangerous. But psionic humans are literal nightmare fuel. Especially since they can be put into a coma by the psionic humans and have nothing but nightmares until their heart literally explodes from fear. All species in the galaxy now know this. They know this because the humans once again reached out and talked to each of the leaders and made sure, at least for one night, they had a restless slumber. A slumber that made many of them need to change the sheets, and not in a good way. They all realized at that point the human threat that said that their borders had now been breached. They had been trespassed on, and no one is going to be let off easy if that happens. And with this breach of the human borders, the galaxy now fears the humans, and even the threat of the humans themselves is enough to keep many of them awake at night, especially thinking that perhaps the killing days of the humans are in fact not done. Hello everybody, this is Syntax. Thank you so much for joining me today on this short story. Before I go, I need to send out a few special thank yous to a few of my supporters, and those will be Erica Gem, Brian Kemp, SS Demon, Chris Dixon, Guardian Sage, and Sir. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I'll see you on the next one. This is Syntext, punching out.